And welcome to an episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And joining me is my co-host Matt Dudek.
Hey there, everybody.
And Matt, of course, you can find on Twitter at GrizzTacoU. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter as well at HorizonRT. And Matt, joining us on his way to Northwestern, very special guest. Jordan Bernfield, who is the Horizon League's play-by-play guy for ESPN. Jordan, thank you very much for joining us.
Of course, guys. Glad to be part of it.
Yes. So Jordan, so for those of everybody scoring at home, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with what you do. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been a part of the Horizon League broadcast specifically for ESPN, and then obviously I know you also do a lot of other things for NBC Sports Chicago. We're catching you on the way to Northwestern. You're doing a game for BTN today.
Yeah. So I'll give you the shorter version than the long version. Not to talk too much about myself, but for me, my connections to the Horizon League go back over 10 years now. I've specifically been doing play-by-play for the Horizon League for ESPN for 5 years. That's when I started working for ESPN, and my first year they put me on the Horizon League package, and I was thrilled to do it because, it was a great opportunity for me starting out in such a, big network and high profile and all that sort of thing, but also because my connections run pretty deep in the Horizon League. And the reason for that is that, growing up in the Chicago area, obviously you're in the Horizon League footprint, so I was familiar with the teams anyway. But also when I got out of college and I was, coming home and looking for jobs and all that sort of thing, one of my first jobs in the broadcast business was actually doing baseball and softball for UIC back in 2009. And so that was what got me into the Horizon League sphere, so to speak. And from there I started covering UIC women's basketball in the 09-10 season, and also UIC men's basketball when their games were broadcast on ESPN 1000, and it was the last year of Jimmy Collins as the UIC head coach. So I go back that far with the league, and really from that year forward, in some way, shape, or form, I've been broadcasting Horizon League basketball ever since. So that's how it started for me. I was also doing Loyola Chicago when they were in the Horizon. So at one point I was working with two teams in the league. And, it's just kind of been a part of me professionally ever since. So and I sort of feel like, the Horizon League has kind of helped launch my career. And so that's why I've always felt a real personal connection to it.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was just saying, very cool. I didn't know Jordan's backstory and all of that. I mean, he's been around calling these games for 5 years, and I didn't know what the whole connection was other than the Chicago area. So that's cool.
Yes, and I'm very glad, and I'm actually very glad. Speaking of Chicago, obviously, I am very glad we were able to. You're the perfect guy for us to have on today. We're recording this on Sunday morning, so we're actually going to probably post this before the Sunday games today, before the Sunday games go off. But Friday, Jordan, you were at Credit Union. Was it Credit One Arena? Credit Union One? I can't remember the name of the
Union One. Yeah,
thank
right.
you. So you were at Credit Union One Arena. You were calling the Northern Kentucky UIC game. And I'm sure you can agree with me. That second half. You know what? Walk us through that, because that has to be the craziest second half I've seen in a long time. Let's start out by the fact that when the second, if I remember correctly, the second half started and UIC was leading by 4 points, and then
a 30-0 run. Yeah, I mean that. You don't see that often. You know,
No.
all was happening at the beginning, guys. You remember the beginning of the run. And, you know, I had a game yesterday in Northwestern. I was talking to, you know, some of the people at our scores table about it because they were watching it too and had the same kind of reaction. They're like, what did you think? I said, really, you know, when the run started for Northern Kentucky, you know, I felt like early in the game UIC was, you know, they were it was a sloppy game, but I felt like UIC sort of was getting good ball movement and their offensive possessions, even though they weren't all finishing with baskets. And I felt like Steve McClain's doing was his team was doing the kinds of things that they would want to do, right? They were executing from an offensive standpoint, even if it wasn't all resulting in baskets. But early in the second half, it just felt like things started to break down on them. And when the run began for Northern Kentucky, it really wasn't that they were making shots. You know, one of the things we were trying to point out in the broadcast was Northern Kentucky was really struggling with their threes.
Yeah.
And one of the themes of the game that we really tried to make known was that, as you guys know, this is kind of a different look for Northern Kentucky this year. Without Drew McDonald, who's the best player in school history, they can't really front the post as much as they used to. They're not going to run their offense through one of their bigs the way they did. They're going to shoot a lot more threes because that's the way they're built now. But they weren't making threes early in the game. And so I think that the run began because UIC had some breakdowns offensively in which they were turning the ball over in kind of a sloppy manner. And I think that if you ask Steve McClain or any of the players, they would agree that they were just not able to execute on several possessions in a row offensively, and they were turning it over, and Northern Kentucky was getting easy baskets. And then once the run got to 10, 12, 14, whatever, all of a sudden Northern Kentucky was like, we've got confidence. Like, things are going great. We're playing well. And so I think that propelled them to start hitting their threes that they weren't making early in the game. So I sort of felt like that 30-0 run was kind of happened in two phases, right? The first was UIC was committing errors that were leading to easy baskets for Northern Kentucky. And then once the Norse had the realization that, hey, things are going great for us, they started burying threes all over the place. And that's when the run really just expanded in such an extraordinary way. And so I can't say that I ever remembered seeing it. You know, I think I asked Rob on the air, Rob Kennedy, our color analyst, about if he'd ever remembered seeing a 30-0 run in person, and he didn't recall one. I couldn't remember one myself, you know, broadcasting college basketball now over 10 years, ever seeing something like that. I mean, it's so unique, especially in a conference game when teams are generally pretty evenly matched. And listen, UIC was picked to finish third in this league, and Northern Kentucky was picked to finish second. So it's just like all the things in context you'd never expect to happen. But it was something. And you know, I've said this for years, covering this league. You know, one of the things that we love so much about covering the Horizon League in particular with this Friday night ESPN package is you feel like you go into these games and all the prep you do and all the things that you can predict might happen seemingly don't happen, right? It's just these are wild games every Friday, and obviously we would never have expected this kind of thing to happen, but that's what makes doing these games on a Friday so exciting and why we love covering this league so much, because, you know, that was something I would never, ever have expected.
I would agree. I mean, and also add one other. You mentioned the miscues on UIC's end. Also, too, and you know, I know you didn't mention this, but they didn't score for 11 minutes. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah,
you would think they would have. You would think they would have hit a basket by accident in 11 minutes.
Yeah, and also, like, you think about, there are certain teams in college basketball that obviously will slow the game down by design or by necessity or whatever. I mean, Matt, you know from watching Oakland this year, I mean, typically Oakland's going to be an up and down, you know, fast-paced team, but Coach Campy's got to dial it back this year due to their just lack of experience at the guard position. You know, I could see it more if it was a team that was trying to limit possessions to not score over a long period of time. I mean, 11 minutes is crazy, but the point is if it was fewer possessions, you might think maybe it's some weird circumstance. But Steve McClain teams want to get up and go, and they've got a bunch of fast guards, and that is what Steve McClain has been trying to build at UIC, and he's done it pretty successfully, I would say, in the context of the Horizon League over the last few years. They've been one of the better teams, and one of the reasons is to get these fast, athletic guards that can shoot the ball. And so, like, the idea that that kind of team wouldn't score over 11 minutes, I think even heaps it into another level of craziness. So yeah, I mean that was nuts. I mean you never think you're going to see a 30-0 run. I mean we see 10-0 runs, 12-2 runs often in college basketball. I mean we all know the game is a game of runs, but you never expect to see 30-0.
So Jordan, I know you and I talked after the Oakland game for a moment, and I know that you do listen to the podcast, which we appreciate. So you've heard me and Bob talk about how we just can't see Steve McClain making it past this year. Do you have any opinion? I mean, we don't get very many UIC fans; they're hard to find. So can you kind of represent UIC fan for us for a moment, or just even college basketball analysts? Do you see him making it out of this year with that team, and what's going on there?
I will actually before you do that, I will disclaimer that Matt, the UIC fans are there are a couple popping up, and they are not happy.
Yeah, well, the UIC, I know many UIC fans. They're a passionate fan base. They do represent. Listen. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't say. I really like covering Steve. I've covered him since his beginnings at UIC. After he took over for Howard Moore, I think that the program is in better shape over the last few years when you consider that they had a 12-win Horizon League season 3 years ago, and they had double-digit wins a season ago. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this year hasn't started the way that they would have hoped, but I think that to be fair to UIC, they were missing 4 starters for a lot of the non-conference. I mean, Rob Howard would have projected as their starting center. He had shoulder surgery, is out for the year. And then Tarkus Ferguson began the year out of the lineup. Marcus Oddie began the season with a leg injury and out of the lineup, and Jordan Blount was recovering from knee surgery. So if we're fair to UIC, how many teams could lose 4 starters and have a good start to the year? None, really, right? I mean, even if you took the top 4 starters off of Duke, they wouldn't be Duke. So the idea that you're going to take 4 starters off a mid-major and say, oh, well, go be the same team that you would have been, I think that's an impossible task. And so, I don't know what's going to happen. I know that there is a new athletic director in Michael Lippitz at UIC. I mean, anyone could speculate that with a new athletic director, perhaps, there could be a change of direction. But I know that Steve McClain is under contract for this season and next. Yep. And I think that he has done a good job at UIC. He has taken listen, they were a 5-win program when he started there. Yeah. And the last couple of years, they have been markedly better, right? I mean, they went to a CBI final, and they have played in the postseason, and they have certainly improved their record. And in the Horizon League, and I would argue the last couple of years, they've been one of the best teams down the stretch the last 2 seasons, racking up wins. Now, obviously, this year there was a different expectation because they have 4 seniors that this might be the year that they could go to the NCAA tournament. But I also think, too, that could still happen, right? I mean, we all know that it comes down to 3 or 4 days in March. And if they're playing well at the end of the year, I would argue that could be a dangerous team if they're healthy with 4 seniors. That's a tough thing, right? Like, if you have 1 game to play against 4 seniors who are motivated to keep their college careers alive, that's not an easy matchup. So I still feel like it could end the way UIC fans wanted it to end. It's just not going to happen the way that they might have expected it to happen.
Okay. Yeah. Now on the other side of the coin, I mean, I guess I got to ask, how badly did Northern Kentucky need this win? I mean, and I mean, forget the way that it was won, but looking what has transpired with Northern Kentucky in the first 4 games of the Horizon League, what kind of a confidence boost is this particular win, especially considering they're still missing Dantes Walton?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I think it was a huge win for Northern Kentucky because this is a new era for them. And then, I think that was certainly one of the themes of the broadcast that we had on Friday at Credit Union One Arena, which is that they are a totally new-look team in a certain respect. I mean, yes, they do have a lot of players back, but Darren Horn's the coach. Obviously, he's going to be different than John Brandon was, who did a brilliant job, obviously, in his tenure at Northern Kentucky. They have, a team that obviously is now without the best player in school history, as we mentioned, with Drew McDonald. Dantez Walton has emerged as one of the best players in the Horizon League, which, frankly, I didn't know was coming. I mean, we all knew that he was really talented. And, in talking to Dantez the last couple of years, I really liked his game. I didn't know he was going to be, multiple 30-point games and really come on the way that he did. So he's obviously emerged as one of the best players in the league, which is great for the Norse. But, with him out and Jalen Tate out for several games with a broken hand to start the year, I mean, who would have known it would materialize the way it has? But to their credit, they still have double-digit wins at this point. They're over 500 in the Horizon League. I think that when you have a culture that has been built the way it has at NKU, they just kind of believe that they're going to do it. And that's one of the things that Darren Horn, told us in shoot-around, that, listen, he's a new coach and he's gotten to know these guys over the course of the last, 8 months after he took over. But he said one of the advantages that he has, obviously, is that he's got a group of kids that believe in themselves and know what it takes to get where they want to go because they've done it. And so it's a huge win for them, because I think as much as we can play up that experience and what they've accomplished, there is a feeling out process, and obviously things are different this year, and they're trying to figure some things out because they've had players out of the lineup and really haven't been healthy all year. So for them to go on the road, win a game there with the national spotlight on them is huge. And I think that, if they get Dantez back later in the season, which they expect to do, that's going to be a tough team. I mean, I think right now Wright State is clearly the best team in this league, but I think that Northern Kentucky is right there. And the reason for it is the culture and the sort of attitude they've established that, they can be kind of a next man up sort of team if they don't have all their guys on the floor.
Sure. There's just one last question, because I know you have to I know you have to go. You mentioned Wright State, and they've had we saw against Detroit Mercy where Detroit Mercy had the opportunity to beat them. How often are we gonna? What is a Horizon League team gonna need to do to compete to get to that level to be able to beat Wright State at this point? We're not under the illusion they're going to run the table or anything, but what is it going to? What advantage can a Horizon League team have to make a statement that they can compete and they can battle with Wright State for the top spot of the Horizon League?
Well, I think you got to give Detroit Mercy, first of all, credit for nearly knocking them off. I mean, those Friday, Sundays, the way that they do it, or Thursday, Saturday in this league, you're playing 2 games in 3 days, and these are still college students, and, it's tough on a day and a half rest, basically, to go back out there and play. So I think it's always tough in those Sunday games, even if you're the favored team. And Detroit Mercy has played a lot of teams tough so far, despite their record. But I would say that, listen, Wright State has all the things that a mid-major team requires to be a team that can win a conference and also give a team a real fit in an NCAA tournament setting. They're a team that has played together for several years. They're an older team. They have guys that have all been together for a long time. And I think that this is a team that's really going to be tough. And so I think that, when you think about the ingredients that Wright State has, they have everything they need, right? They've got scoring. They've got interior play. They've got an excellent lead guard in Cole Gentry that can really make things go for them. And so, they've got all the ingredients to be awesome. And I think that's why they are, right? But I think that to knock them off, really what I would say is that you have to limit Loudon Love's touches and force their guards to take tough shots on the perimeter. they have a lot of good guards. I mean, Gentry is, like I said, tremendous. Bill Wampler is an excellent scorer, and I think, has gotten better and better. Tanner Holden, I really like as a freshman. I mean, he's physical, he's long, he's speedy, he's got a really nice shot. This is a high school football player, so he's got a really good body for a freshman. I think that they've got all the things that you need to be really good. Honestly, to me, it would just be to limit Love on the interior and frustrate their shooting. They move the ball extremely well, and it would require excellent perimeter defense. And, I think that not every team has a player that can play with Loudon Love. He's extremely strong. I mean, this is a kid who was an offensive lineman who developed this awesome body as a college basketball player. So it's not going to be easy. But, I think that's probably what it takes. And, I think it's hard to ever predict, like you said, that a team can run the table. And I would think that would be unlikely. But Wright State is really, really good, and Scott Nagy's done a brilliant job.
All right. Well, Jordan, I know your time is limited, so thank you again for joining us. Tell everybody where we can find you and where we can listen to you next the next time on as a Horizon League play-by-play guy on ESPN.
Oh yeah, no. Thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure to be on with you. This week we don't have a Horizon Friday game, but we will have one on Friday, the 24th of January. It's a 9 Eastern tip. It's on ESPNU, and we've got the first one between Wright State and Northern Kentucky at the Nutter Center in Fairborn. So it should be fun. It should be loud. We love those crowds because, you get so many people drive up from NKU since it's an hour apart. Yep. So we're looking forward to that one. So Friday the 24th at 9 Eastern is where you'll find us next.
Great.
Awesome.
All right. Jordan, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jordan.
No problem, guys. Thanks. Take care.
And that was Jordan Bernfield, and you could catch him. You find him on Twitter at Jordan Bernfield. That was Matt. That's on you. That props to you, man, for getting the ball rolling on getting him on and hooking us up.
Can I tell you the truth? I got to tell you a quick story about that. So
sure.
I was literally row right behind Jordan. We've been tweeting all day. He knew who I was. I knew who he was. Like, we talked for a few minutes. It was great. I asked him about the podcast. He's like, absolutely. And he gave me his card. And Jordan, when you listen to this, I'm sorry. I put that card in my wallet, and I have no idea where that card went. I'm like, are you kidding me? This guy's awesome. He wants to come on with us. He was super complimentary of what we do. Like, this is great. And I don't know where that card went. But I'm glad we were able to still work it out. And I'm an idiot. I don't know what to say.
That's okay. Never underestimate the power of Twitter DMs.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So no, I'm glad we were able to get him on. I do. It's nice to have someone like Jordan who is an outsider to the league, but is familiar and he keeps up and he does know his stuff. And I really appreciate having someone like him. And like I said, he was very complimentary of what we do, and it's cool that we were able to get him on, and hopefully we can talk to him again in the future.
Absolutely.
So what the hell else is going on in this league right now?
Okay, so we got to talk about Youngstown State, all right? Because it looks.
Hold on, Bob. Can we talk about one other thing first?
Oh no, I know where we're going. Oh God!
Can I just say I'm so glad we don't have to record this bonus episode. Thank God.
Oh my God, that was.
I'd have done it, but I wouldn't have been happy.
Oh, that was such a clown show on Saturday. Such a freaking clown show. I mean, I could see. I mean, there were, I think, 51 fouls called in that game.
In the first half.
50 freaking one. The only reason that game wasn't closer is because Cleveland State couldn't hit their free throws. But it was like the refs were getting paid by the hour. What a bunch of clown shoes those guys are.
To be fair, they called it even. I didn't like the way they called it.
Evenly terrible. Evenly terrible. It was so unwatchable. I was sitting here and I wanted to throw stuff at my television because I kept hearing whistles. I heard whistles in my sleep. That's how many whistles there were.
I watched Dennis Gates' post-game press conference. And
I actually have not yet, so you're kind of spoiling it for me, but go ahead.
Well, somebody tried to ask him about that, and he just completely shut them down. It's the first time I've really seen Dennis Gates speak. I was very impressed by him as a human. I thought, obviously he's done a really nice job as a coach, but he pretty much shut it down, talking about how he brought up about 15 different things that he would point to before he even thought about the officiating last night. So anyway.
It's actually really funny because, over the years we've had a lot of really animated guys. Dennis Gates, his on-court, he is a very mild-mannered guy. I don't know if you've seen him on the court. Yesterday, further proof was on Saturday's game, but against Oakland, where on one side you had Greg Campy, who was, there were points in time where I thought he was just going to, get up and just throw a ref into the stands. That's how pissed off he was. But all Dennis Gates did the whole game was doing like the death glare. That's what he did. I can't say as I blame either of them, because that was such a horrible. It was And again, it's not, and it wasn't, and you were absolutely right. It was even, the crappiness was so evenly distributed. It was
They said, this is how we're calling this game, and that's exactly how they called it. I have to give them credit. I didn't like it, but it was super consistent, and,
consistently bad. I mean, if I was Simon Cowell, I'd be asking you to leave the room.
They called any and every
That's a no for me.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, we can talk about Youngstown. I just wanted to really quick we don't have to do that.
That was a clown show. I swear to God, whoever is in charge of officiating at the Horizon League, dude, come on, man, seriously. I know they did call it up the middle, no problem, but come on, man. Some of us actually want to enjoy watching the game.
Do you know who that game probably pisses off the most if they go back and watch that replay? Is Mike Davis. Because he would kill to have Antoine Davis get a game called that way. He would kill. That's exactly what he's campaining for, and maybe that's why they don't give it to him. But
honestly, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what he's trying to do on Thursday. Because he was cruising for a tech on Thursday against Cleveland State. But Cleveland State still won, so it's good. I was okay with that. But yeah, so Youngstown State. Wow. So they're undefeated at home. They're 8-0 at Beagley. I'm not going to count their game. Obviously they have another game they played at the Covelli Center, which is the bigger arena in Youngstown, against West Virginia, which obviously they lost. But as far as their record in the Beagley Center, it is 8-0. They're undefeated. They beat Oakland. They beat Detroit Mercy. Ironically, also at the last minute on both of those games, which is amazing to me.
Well, do you want to break those down super quick? I
don't need to. Nice Ole defense by Oakland at the last second.
So I
Ole.
Around here in sports radio, we have a siren when someone, I talked to a source, blah blah. So you can siren me if you're one of those people. I talked to somebody from Oakland about that, and I'm still not sure what was supposed to. I know that Trey was supposed to keep in front of him, and Dan Oladapo was supposed to prevent the pass from coming in, and neither of them did their job, it sounds like. And coast to coast, easy lay-in, and there you go, game over.
Yeah, that's true.
Oakland has lost more stupid games to Youngstown State doing stupid shit than I can even count, and it's still payback because Campy pulled off the a win over Youngstown in a play or in maybe a CIT game. I don't know, some game late in the season before we were, I think, even in the conference. He pulled off the charge call with from an out of bounds play to get Bader to the line to win a game that we should have lost. So it's really still just payback from all that.
Would be my guess, but yeah. And then fast forward to Saturday, and Youngstown State gets the lay in, and there's 20-something seconds left. And Detroit Mercy decides, screw it, we're not going to call a timeout. They had 2 timeouts, by the way.
What do you call a timeout for? Everybody knows the play. I'm not even smart, and I know the play.
But which is exactly. And so did Youngstown State, and they game planned for it. So what if at least for they could have called timeouts that Mike Davis could have said, in case Antoine isn't open, this is your plan B. And that's not what happened. And by the way, Antoine Davis didn't take the last shot in the game, I might add. I mean, you had 20-something seconds to get something together and tie that ball game, and you didn't. It's amazing to me because we're seeing with Detroit Mercy that you see the potential for them to be way better than they are, but they just aren't.
I mean, when your quote unquote star player is 5 of 20 from the field with 5 turnovers on top of it, that's not, you can't win games like this.
No. What because what are you doing? And what are you doing? You know, every single team in this conference is game planning for your kid. Period. Cleveland State did it, and they basically rendered him. They rendered him invisible. Yeah, he got 15 points, but on what kind of shooting? Not very good. I mean, Cleveland State put a 3-headed monster on him. They put Hugo Ferreira, they put Franklin Penn, who played his ass off at that game, and they put Cash Thomas on him. They basically, they gang defended him. That's how you do it. Get somebody else and Cleveland State did exactly what I said, and I swear, I had to re-listen to last episode, and I said that their game plan was going to be make anybody else beat you, and I think Al Eichelberger can handle Justin Miller, and I was absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. And they won. And yeah, you could tell. And the matchup between Miller and Eichelberger was nothing. I mean, whereas Justin Miller had kind of emerged in the win against Northern Kentucky, he was not anywhere near as much of a factor in the Cleveland State game because he had to deal with Eichelberger all game, nearly all game. And when he wasn't dealing with Eichelberger, he had to deal with Jalen Hill, who did just as well. I mean, it was, but that's what everybody's game playing for. And Youngstown State did the exact same thing. Their focus was on defending Antoine Davis, make somebody else beat you. And it just seems, it's so weird. It's like, I don't know, and again, I don't know I'm sure the idea was, okay, get the ball, your last play on the last seconds of that game is to get Antoine the ball and get him to produce something. And I said, I actually tweeted this out. Is Mike Davis not aware that Youngstown State plays defense? Because they do.
They play great defense.
Yeah, exactly. Jared Calhoun didn't come from shoot first, ask questions later kind of. He's got defenders. He's got he's got Darius Quisenberry clamping down. He's got Naz Bohannon, who's probably going to be, the way Naz Bohannon is playing, he's probably, you could probably make an argument for him as Defensive Player of the Year. Naz Bohannon. That's how good he's been all year. But yeah, that's who he went up against, and he went with that game plan anyway. Because apparently he doesn't know anything else, which I don't really understand. You're Mike freaking Davis. You went to a Final Four. Hello?
To be fair, he went to a Final Four with Bob Knight's team.
I understand that, but he also was able to get Texas Southern to the NCAA tournament 4 straight freaking years. His kid wasn't on the team then.
That's true.
It's so I'm dumbfounded by the whole thing. It's like
Is this just another example of Detroit Mercy hiring a coach based on the coach's son, and the coach's son doesn't know how to coach with the coach's son? Because they've done that a lot.
Lot. You are well. At least, yeah, but only difference is that Ray McCallum was able to get to an NCAA tournament with his son. I don't see that happening here. I really don't. Even if Antoine stays 2 years, you got teams on the come up who are going to be better than Detroit Mercy. I'm sorry, but that's going to be true. I really think that's true.
I still think Antoine Davis needs to transfer for Antoine Davis, but I also know it's not going to happen. But man, I think he needs to transfer and play at least 1 year at a high major and show what he's capable of. Because right now, he doesn't even look – I wouldn't even have him on the first team. Honestly, in the horizon, and that's not where he wants to be trying to go pro.
No, because the Horizon League, the Horizon League teams are on his game, and they're shutting him down.
Who would you take right now? Would you take Tajon Lucas or would you take Antoine Davis?
I'd take Tajon Lucas.
Absolutely.
I really would.
We should talk about that game too at some point.
But I do want to. But I know we talked a lot about how how lost Detroit Mercy looks. But again, I want to get back. I want to get back to the whole the Youngstown State as a whole, because you have a team. This is year 3 of Jared Calhoun. You see them. You're finally seeing the fruits of their labor. Cleveland State loss notwithstanding. They got 2 road wins in Illinois and Indiana, at UIC and IUPUI. They've won 2 games at home. They're undefeated at home. I said it in the preseason that Youngstown State had the potential to do this, and now it looks like they're finally realizing it. Finally. We'll see this weekend, because this weekend's going to be pretty. Next weekend's going to be pretty tough, because next weekend they're going to Wright State in Northern Kentucky. We'll see kind of the true test of what Youngstown State can do. I think that Youngstown State Northern Kentucky game on Thursday, that's going to be a great game. I really do. I think those two I think Youngstown State and Northern Kentucky match up really well, and that one's going to be a barn burner.
There's definitely some good Horizon basketball coming there. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. The one game. Yeah, you mentioned Tajon Lucas, and you mentioned Milwaukee, and we haven't. And again, because we don't have Jimmy on here all that often, we don't talk a lot about Milwaukee. But
there hasn't been a lot to talk about lately.
But yeah, because of course, Milwaukee started 0-2, so that didn't really help them either. That didn't really help their cause, but the last, they're doing a little better now. They won 3 games. They've won 3 games in a row. They beat on Saturday. They beat Green Bay, and Green Bay was sticking in that game for a little bit, and Green Bay just ran out of gas.
Little disappointed in Green Bay. I really thought they were going to start turning the corner and showing that they were one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league, and then they dropped this one to Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing how they've really how things have kind of not materialized for Green Bay. And again, for Green Bay, the best word I could use to describe them is erratic. You don't know what Green Bay team you're getting every game, and that's a problem for them, because it seems like they're on one game and then off 2 games. If you're a Green Bay fan, you're probably pulling your hair out right now, saying, "Give us a little consistency, for crying out loud."
At least know what you are,
Exactly. Do you know what they are at this point? I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, you're squandering. I mean, with your erratic play, you're really squandering what I consider to be an outstanding freshman campaign by Amari Davis. I mean, he got 28 points in that game, and he shot over 50% from the field. And we've talked about Amari Davis a little bit, and Amari Davis is one of those players that could definitely be an impact for Link Jarner moving forward. He's got the game. I definitely think he's freshman of the year front runner at this point. I think I mentioned that last week. I reiterated that this week. Great player. But yeah, the whole thing with that is just, it's so insane. But yeah, let's talk about Tajon Lucas for a second, though. I mean, you want to talk about a kid who is just, and it's funny because we had John Parker wrote a piece on HorizonRoundtable.com about Tajon Lucas about that, and it's so funny that he mentioned how under the radar he was, and he's kind of proving how good a player he is at this point, because he got 31 against Green Bay.
I didn't know who he was until John wrote that article.
I don't
think
think
on the radar. I won't lie. I had no idea.
Exactly. Nobody knew who he was, which is amazing to me. And it's like, that's how under the radar Lucas was for them. And now he's killing it for them right now.
Watching that game yesterday, he's a player that can take over a tournament game and could get Milwaukee on a run.
Yeah.
In the Horizon League tournament, I wouldn't want to face him.
No,
it's not even
absolutely
Milwaukee.
not.
It's him.
No, that's true. You're absolutely right. I mean, and not to take away, and honestly, not to take anything away from the rest of Green Bay. I mean, Darius Roy himself had 23 as well. So he's actually turning out to be an outstanding player for them as well. So whereas, in the first weekend you're kind of wondering what exactly is going on with Pat Baldwin, 3 games later, they're inching towards 500. They're 3-2 in the conference, and they look pretty good at this point. They may have something going on. Who knows? I mean, and with the way this conference is going, you never know.
It really, I mean, we still, like I said, you mentioned earlier that when we were talking with Jordan that we were recording, before the Sunday games.
Yeah.
But really, what this week has shown us is the Horizon League is what we keep saying. It's just kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
It really, at this point, we need Wright State to win because they're our best bet going into the tournament. Because otherwise, this league is just a crapshoot, and not
really
necessarily
is.
in a good way.
And it's funny because it's actually even more of a crapshoot this year than it was last year. And last year was just an amazing crapshoot. It was. I mean, it's like it's a giant slap fight from like 2 to 10 now. Although I will say IUPUI is kind of stepping back a little bit more as we move forward. UIC and IUPUI are they're slowly sinking down to the bottom like the rocks that they apparently seem to be. But everybody else, man, everybody else, and again, that we are including, that we are including Cleveland State into this conversation blows me away. But you could even make the argument for Detroit Mercy, because you get a couple of shots to fall for Detroit Mercy, and they're not 1-4, or
honestly,
1-4, yeah.
If I look at each team and I start to think, okay, who wouldn't I want to play, and I can come up with a reason I don't want to play pretty much any team.
Yeah.
Except for Oakland, which I'm not supposed to say as an Oakland guy, but like I think that's the one team I'd want to play right now. Xavier Hill Mays doesn't scare me. Brad Brechting doesn't scare me right now. Like all their advantages that they should be doing, they're not doing. Like I think if you had to play anyone in the tournament right now, that's who you want to play.
Yeah, that's the one. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because against the game against Cleveland State, the key factor in that game was not either FedEx or Brad Brechting. They weren't, because Hill Mays had foul trouble for a lot of the second half, and Brad Brechting was pretty much went up. As I mentioned last week, I said I did mention that Al Eichelberger could take Brad Brechting, and he did. The key was the backcourt, and of course the fact Cleveland State couldn't hit any free throws. I mean, because Kevin Kangu, where was Kevin Kangu? Did he get lost in the luggage or something? I mean, he didn't play the entire first half. Second half, he goes off.
He must have done something and get himself benched for the half. I'm wondering if Kenny Pittman maybe was part of that, because Kenny Pittman usually sees some minutes. He saw nothing yesterday, so yeah. I don't know.
He started like what, 3 freshmen last day. He started what, 2 or 3 freshmen against Cleveland State, and I was like, what the? Did I miss something?
No, Campy's rotation is such a clusterfuck, and that's he'll tell you that too, and he doesn't know. It's just throwing shit at the wall every game and seeing
it's like the I don't know, you figure it out. I mean, but obviously he figured it out against Cleveland State. So I mean, I don't know. That might be the exception, not the rule, though.
At some point, it's good coaching because basically he's giving everybody a chance to prove themselves. I've been saying CJ Gettlefinger, I don't understand why he doesn't see more minutes. He had a good stretch here. He had a stretch of minutes against Cleveland State, but he didn't play well. So what? Then he loses that opportunity. He's giving everybody an opportunity, and nobody is taking it. Zach Goodline, I've half of the city of Coloma, which is a small West Michigan city, hates me because I'm not a huge Zach Goodline fan. It's not Zach Goodline I'm not a fan of. I don't think that a a freshman that we were told was going to redshirt and wouldn't see the floor this year should be our starting point guard all of a sudden. But you know what? He's at least trying to make the most of his minutes. I can't be mad about that. Like,
no,
this team, just no one wants to step up. And if I had to play anyone in the tournament right now, I'd want to play Oakland.
I don't necessarily disagree on that, and I look forward to the rematch. Hopefully, without the officiating crew. Still, I'm gonna have nightmares about that officiating for like weeks. It's gonna be. I'm gonna hear clown shoes in my sleep. So, all right. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. Again, thanks once again to Jordan Bernfield for joining us in the first part of the podcast. We're looking forward to seeing him in the weeks to come on the ESPN family of networks. Doing the play-by-play for the Horizon League. And, of course, as for us, you can always find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable on horizonroundtable.com, as well as as where podcasts are available. I did find out, by the way, apparently Pandora does podcasts now. We're not on there yet, but we're getting there. I'm working on it. But so everywhere but Pandora, because apparently Pandora is doing podcasts now. Well, but I'm going to get that done. And of course you can pull up your Amazon or Google devices, and you can play the Horizon Roundtable on there. So that should do it for us, and thank you all for listening.